Konnichiwa! Shalom! Ciao! Bonjour! Namaste!
Bienvenidos! Hey, my name is Jedley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We're beaming out to you in the entire universe from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. You know, I believe that real magic happens when we share stories together. When a kid sits down with his parent, grandparent, teacher, and they open a book, hearts connect, imaginations grow, and love shines brighter. We hope that you'll help us grow our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, YouTube, CastBox, Audible, Amazon Music. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really wonderful show for you today. First up, Emma Otheguy returns to Reading with Your Kids to celebrate her new middle grade novel. It's called Adventure in the City of Stories. And later in the show, Fernanda Frick joins us from Santiago in Chile to celebrate her middle grade graphic novel, Raise the Bar. Hey, if you are an author of a great children's book, I bet you're looking for a marketing partner, not just another award. If you're an independent children's author, you probably discovered something. Writing the book, that was actually the easy part. Now comes the hard part, helping readers discover it. At Reading with Your Kids, we created the Certified Great Read program because we know authors just don't need another award. They need a real marketing partner. When your book earns our Certified Great Read recognition, we don't simply send you a certificate and wish you luck. We get to work. Your book receives a thorough professional review. We post reviews on major retail sites. We create an announcement video and graphics that you can share for years. We feature a book on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We write a professional press release. We prepare social media content. We even create a personalized 30-day celebration adventure filled with simple daily missions that help you connect with bookstores, schools, libraries, parenting groups, and the communities where children's books naturally thrive. Our goal isn't simply to tell you people that your book is great. Our goal is to give you the tools to keep telling that story long after the award announcement is over. Because we believe every wonderful children's book deserves a chance to find the children whose lives it can touch. If you'd like to learn more, please visit readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page and scroll on down to Certified Great Read. We'd be honored to celebrate your story. Hey, this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by AspireDrinks.com. Hey, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever wanted a little extra energy, but not the kind that makes your heart race or leaves you crashing an hour later? Well, that's exactly why I want to tell you about Aspire Drinks. You'll find them at AspireDrinks.com. Aspire calls itself a healthy energy drink, and honestly, that description really fits. Instead of loading you up with sugar or extreme caffeine, Aspire delivers a gentle, steady boost with 80 milligrams of natural caffeine from green tea and guarana. That's about half the caffeine of most energy drinks, enough to help you stay focused without the jitters or the crash. It's also zero sugar, 0 calories, and 0 artificial additives, which makes it a great choice for parents, teachers, and anyone trying to make healthier choices while still getting things done. And get this, it actually tastes great, light, crisp, and lightly sparkling, with flavors like sweet cherry, raspberry acai, mango lemonade, that's what I love. No heavy aftertaste and easy on the stomach. Aspire is packed with B and C vitamins, biotin, and ginger, and it's vegan, gluten-free, keto-friendly, really designed for real life. And just for Reading with Your Kids listeners, you can get an exclusive discount of 20% off. That's the highest discount available when you shop at AspireDrinks.com and use our promo code READ. That's READ at AspireDrinks.com. Healthy energy done right. My friends, we are about to celebrate an adventure in the city of stories, a new middle grade novel from our guest, Emma Otheguy. Emma, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Jed.
Great to have you back on. Tell us about this adventure, please. What city are we talking? Are we talking about your city?
We are talking about New York City, which is where I was born and where I am located now. So this is a middle grade time travel adventure. The kids travel back in time to 1930 in New York City. This is the time when the New York City skyline was being built. The Empire State Building was actively under construction. It was also the second year of the Great Depression, and also when a lot of really interesting literary work was being done in New York City. This is the time when Chilean Nobel laureate Gabriela Mistral was living in New York City and writing poetry here. This is when Pura Belpré was organizing her famous story times and pantomimes at the New York Public Library. This is when Arturo Schomburg was working on the Schomburg Center for what is now called the Schomburg Center for Black Research. So it's an exciting moment in literary history and also in New York.
Yeah. Boy, I wasn't quite alive in the 30s. But I came around not too far after that.
Oh, come on.
And I know that my city of Boston was a very different place when I was growing up, and I imagine New York City was too.
Yes, New York City was very different in a variety of ways. But what I think makes 1930 such an exciting year is that the city was certainly different. There were streetcars, which of course don't exist now. Some of the major buildings and icons weren't here yet, but it was when New York City was just starting to become the city that we recognize. So the skyscrapers were going up really fast in 1930. The transit system is expanding. Neighborhoods are being built up. And so it's different, but it's still a little familiar. It's when what we know of as New York City is really taking shape.
Yeah. And I'm amazed when I look back at how fast those buildings went up.
Yes.
It sounds like nowadays.
It's unthinkable now.
It really is crazy to think about.
I mean, when I was doing the research for this book, I read a lot of books published in the 1920s and 30s. And for the World's Fair in the 1930s, I was reading a source that was talking about the expansion of the subway network. And of course, they wanted to get a subway line from Midtown out to the fairgrounds. And they're talking about this like, the idea has been presented, there's been a proposal, and, in a few months, there'll be a subway. Compared to now where, that kind of project might take easily years, if not decades. And so it's really interesting and to me really exciting to read about everything that was being built.
Yeah. I experienced something kind of similar. I was down in San Salvador, El Salvador, a couple of years ago, and at the time I was told, we're going to put all of the telephone wires and electrical wires and cable, we're going to bury all of it. I go, why? My goodness, what a tremendous undertaking. How long is that going to be? How many years? And they go, no, it's going to be done in 6 months.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there are different reasons for that.
Sure.
Some of it does have to do with we have better labor protections now than we did then. And so we have to do things more safely, and that can sometimes add time. But I think a lot of it also has to do with political will and willingness and urgency to get these types of projects done. So if you like trains and buildings, New York City in the year 1930 is a fun place to visit.
Yeah. Who are we going to go on this adventure with?
Yeah, so we're going with cousins Jorge, Segi, and Camila, who are the same cousins from the companion volume, Cousins in the Time of Magic, which was published last year. Adventure in the City of Stories is a brand new adventure, but it's the same three cousins. They have the same zany history nerd aunt, Tia, and they're traveling back in time now to a new place. So we have these three cousins, and they get caught up in a new time travel adventure.
Very cool. Very cool. What inspires your interest in time travel?
I studied history. I have a doctorate in history, and I've always been interested in the history of Latinos around the world, the history of Latin America, the history of the United States, obviously, because I live in the United States. And I always tell people, I started writing children's books because I was in graduate school and I was learning aspects of our history, stories that are not often told, that were really significant to me personally, that I found really exciting and fun. But I didn't feel like there was a way of sharing what I was learning with a broader audience, right? What I was doing was sort of very self-contained within the academy. And when I started writing for children, it really felt freeing to me. It felt exciting because I felt like I was finally reaching people with the stories that I cared about. Mm-hmm. And so time travel is, as a historian, so exciting because it's a way of teaching history, of course. That's in historical time travel, of course. It's a way that we teach history. Mm-hmm. But it's something that everyone finds fun. Nobody ever, the way people might think that a history book is going to be dry or boring or long, we don't feel that way about time travel because we know that if the characters travel back in time, then we are fully immersed in that historical time period. We're in it. Mm-hmm. And that was, to me, just a really great opportunity writing a time travel book.
Yeah, yeah. You are right. And we've talked a lot here on the podcast about how it seems like our education system has taken some really fascinating topics and figured out the most boring, uninteresting way to teach them in the classroom.
Yes, it's sometimes like they're trying to make it more boring.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's like crazy. It's like, dude, you could do this so much better.
Yes. I once heard Laurie Halse Anderson speak, and she said you should never give a kid a work of historical fiction and tell them that it's a history book. You should tell them that it's an exciting action adventure book, which is what history really, of course, is.
Yeah.
And so I do think that time travel lets us sidestep some of that dry boringness, some of that, sitting there in the textbook outlining the bullet points that we all remember from social studies education when we were kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as somebody who's writing these time travel books and doing the research, how do you keep yourself interested as you're reading all those boring history books?
What's funny is I did read some boring books. I certainly read some books that were really just like very traditional histories of this time period or of the city. But I also read a lot of memoirs. So the first half of the 20th century is exciting. One of the reasons that it is interesting to me is it's a time when you're starting to see many Latino immigrants in New York City. So in 1917, Puerto Ricans become United States citizens, and over time, you start seeing more and more Puerto Ricans living in New York City. And many of them wrote memoirs of their first years in the city. Of their life in the city, in the 1920s and the 1930s and the 1940s and beyond. And so reading those memoirs was not boring at all. These were interesting first-person accounts written by good writers, by people who really made a difference and had an impact on the city, who had a story to tell. So those were not boring at all to read. I found reading memoirs of people who had lived in the city just really interesting. And I especially from those memoirs, sometimes the challenge of writing fiction, of writing historical fiction, is that the issues that, a professional historian, somebody who's writing an adult history, they might be talking about really thorny issues, but they're not necessarily talking about like, well, what did the street look like? What did the house feel like? And so, when you read a memoir, that's where those kind of sensory details that make reading fiction so engaging really come from. So I was able to pull a lot from there. And I also got to go to the New York Public Library and do some archival research for this book. So I visited the maps division because I had some questions about like where the Cousins' magic boat would arrive in New York City. And so I actually went and got old fire insurance maps from 1930. So if you go to 42nd Street, walk up the steps of the New York Public Library and you see Patience and Fortitude, those big famous stone lions on every side. There's a maps division where they have all of these old maps that were produced for the purposes of fire insurance. So they're really detailed maps of every single lot. And they're these huge, huge maps that, take up, there's like this giant table, like the size of a table in a conference room. And the map will take up that whole table. And, anybody can go there and request access to those maps and to see those. So I had to go and tell them that I wanted to see maps of, these certain neighborhoods in New York City in the year 1930. And they said, yes, of course. Why are you interested? They'll ask you what you're researching. And I had to say, well, I need to know where a magic boat would have docked. And so, they were very lovely. They didn't bat an eye. They just said, oh, okay, here's your map. And so I got to do a lot of really fun, interesting research for this book.
Uh-huh. It would have been even funnier if the librarian had said, well, when my magic boat arrived, we went,
Yes, yeah, if they had just played along, if they'd just been like, oh, we get this one all the time.
I imagine as you were talking about the memoirs of folks migrating from Puerto Rico to the United States, it reminds me a lot of the stories that my father-in-law told me of his move from Puerto Rico with his then newly wed bride. And his plan was, I told my father-in-law 3 years. I was going to go to New York City for 3 years and make some money and then come back to right back to Carrizal and Morovis, and don't worry about a thing. Your daughter would be back in just a couple of years. And that never happened.
Yeah, that happens with New York. That's one of the dangerous things about coming to New York City is, you might never come back, or you might stay. People tend to stay.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me, that must have been fascinating. Just the history of migration of the different groups migrating to the United States. Mm-hmm. Boy, that could be a really fascinating book in and of itself. So what a great subject to kind of look at the different waves of migration into the United States and what propelled it. And maybe we'd be a little bit more understanding about what's happening now.
Yeah, I think that it's especially in New York City where you have these sort of waves of immigration that are very well known, right? We talk a lot about, late 19th, early 20th century waves of European immigration to New York City because we talk about Ellis Island, we talk about the Statue of Liberty. These are stories that make us feel good. And are important stories, of course. I should also add. I think they're really important stories to know about. I love that in New York State, kids usually study immigration in the 4th or 5th grade. So it's a really interesting moment. But then we tend to stop telling the story of immigration throughout the 20th century. It's like we sort of make immigration a story about, turn of the 19th into the 20th century. And then it just ends, and there's no discussion of immigration as something that continues throughout the 20th century. So we don't talk about, for example, Puerto Rican migration, which happens a little bit later. We certainly don't talk about current issues in immigration. And that's an issue that I've been trying to write about and teach kids about through my books for over the course of many books now. So my contemporary novel, Sofia Acosta Makes a Scene. It's about a 5th grade girl living in the suburbs of New York, actually, which is where I grew up. I grew up in the suburbs. And she's actually learning about her own family's immigration history in the 20th century. And her class actually learns like the different stages and the different systems of immigration that the United States has had and really uncovers a lot of the issues that surround some of those policies. And in this book, Adventure in the City of Stories, I'm similarly trying to help kids understand a different moment in our immigration history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm imagining that this book would be a great way to start conversations with our kids about immigration, how we feel about it, and how we can help people feel welcome in our classrooms, in our communities.
Yeah. And there is, when I describe the book, I talk about it as a book about Latino luminaries in New York City's literary history. And it certainly is about that. It's about Schomburg. It's about Belpré. It's about Mistral. There is one person in the book who's not a Latina. And that is Anne Carroll Moore, who was the director of the first children's division at the New York Public Library. And she is in this book because she had such an impact on the course that children's librarianship and children's books would take. She had a big role directing the entire children's division. And she's in the book partially because she was such a character and she had this wooden doll that talked and she would make kids pretend it actually talked. So some of the details of her life were just too zany not to include in the book. But also because her commitment to serving immigrants, including multilingual immigrants, through the public library is a legacy that I think is really important. I think it's a legacy that is shared by all of us in the children's literature world. And it's an example of how literature can and should be welcoming and how welcoming literature actually elevates the whole field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So kids will find her there too.
Who inspired the cousins?
Well, some of my own cousins. So, I mean, nobody is like, obviously, you can't read it and be like, oh, obviously this is my one cousin. But Segi, for example, who's this bombastic, very social, very gossipy, very fashionable young man he feels to me like just so many of my cousins in Miami could fit that description. So he was inspired by people I knew. And Jorge also, he was kind of headlong and acrobatic. He's just this very impulsive child. And that feels a lot like some of my cousins. I have one cousin who I'm a very cautious person and she's very not cautious, I would say. And that always, when we were growing up, that was always, I was just always so afraid of getting in trouble, but we would have so much fun because she would do things that I would never think of. And so that dynamic certainly inspired the dynamic between Jorge and his cousin Camila, who's a little bit more reserved.
Uh-huh. I loved, what was the word you used? Gymnastic? Jorge is...
Yeah, he's acrobatic.
Acrobatic.
Yes.
I think that's such a wonderful, because a lot of times we describe kids as hyper or, just bouncing off the walls. And you can describe the same kid by saying he's acrobatic, and now it's a positive.
It's a positive, and it's like, Jorge, on the one hand, he gets them into a lot of trouble because he is so acrobatic, as we say, but he also gets them out of a lot of trouble that way. I mean, he's the one in Adventure in the City of Stories when he and one of the kids they meet in the past are trying to escape this really mean old millionaire. And he's like running into the dumbwaiter and throwing himself, like kind of like sliding in there to escape just in the nick of time. His acrobatics certainly help. And I always tell kids, this is always fun for me, which is that in the first book, Cousins in the Time of Magic, there's a scene where the kids are fleeing a horrifically racist Confederate general. And Jorge jumps up on the chandelier and just like swings and, gets a good kick in. And, I always say that just felt really delightful to write. Wouldn't we all like to go back in time and get a good kick in? Yeah. And the illustrator actually illustrated that scene. So it's a fun one.
Cool. Very cool. Hey, of the literary luminaries that you write of in Adventures in the City of Stories, who's your favorite and why?
Oh, I have to pick one? I'll tell you the one that I find... I'll tell you the one that I think surprises people the most, but I felt was really key, is that Gabriela Mistral is in there. Because Pura Belpré was working in Harlem on 115th Street at one of the New York Public Library's branch libraries. Gabriela Mistral, in the same year, is working just across town it's not even across town, it's a few blocks away at Barnard College. She's teaching there. And so these women were working literally a few blocks away from each other. Gabriela Mistral actually went to Pura Belpré's library and did a reading there. So they knew about each other. They were interacting in Spanish in this like very intellectual and collaborative way. And they were very nearby. But because we are always so focused on national identity and status, history forgets that, right? Because Pura Belpré she's Puerto Rican. She's talked about as a Puerto Rican. We think of her as being in Harlem. We think of her as having nothing at all to do with a Chilean woman at Barnard, which we think of as being in, Barnard, we think of it as being in a totally different part of town. But it's right there. Mm-hmm. And so by putting Gabriela Mistral in the book, I felt like I got to cut through some of these silos. I got to talk about Latinos in literature in New York City, not as their national identities, not that their national identities aren't a part of who they are, but it's not all of who they are. They were also writers. They were Spanish speakers. They were Latinas. They were women who cared deeply about children and about the advancement of kids and women, especially in our society. Gabriela Mistral identified as the poet of women and children. And so by putting Gabriela Mistral in the book, I felt that I got to say something about who these women were that was about the impact that they had. It was about what they did, what they believed in, and not about what national background or class status we affiliate them with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So very important. Are there going to be more adventures that the cousins are going to take together?
I don't know. We'll find out. There are lots of potentials. There are so many interesting stories about Latinos and the United States in history.
Yeah. I'm curious. My team challenged me to, I don't use a set of questions, big surprise. But they challenged me that I should ask authors at the end of our conversations, what's the one thing you would love for a kid to hear at the end of the day from adult that they love?
At the end of the school day or the end of the day?
End of the day, as they're going off.
At bedtime. At bedtime, I tell my own children every night how much I love them. And I think that there's nothing more profound we can say to our children than that, that they are valued, loved beyond measure, precious, that we seek to know them, which I think is something that is always a challenge as adults, to try and actually know who children are as a group, who our children are as individuals, who they are in different contexts. I mean, right, all of us have had these, certainly all of us parents have had these moments of talking to our kids' teachers and, being shocked to discover who our kids are when they're in other contexts. But I want my children to know that. I want them to know that I'm trying to know who they are, that I'm seeking to know them and to see them, even if I very likely do it imperfectly.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that reading together with our kids, whether they're 5 and curled up on the couch with us or 15 and we're co-reading a novel together. That's a great way to get to know your kids.
Yeah, that's a really nice thought to think about with literature. I'm reading aloud a lot more to my children now over the summer because my children are very young, but we always read aloud at bedtime. But in the summer, now that they're home more, I'm able to read aloud to them during the day. And that is enormous. I mean, their ability to engage with much more complex plots. We're reading, some longer novels together now. It's really different during the day than it is in the evenings. And that's been, sometimes summer is tough because we all are missing our regular routines, but that, time to read aloud just in the middle of the afternoon instead of when everybody's exhausted is really, it really matters. It really makes a difference.
Yeah. Tell me, when Emma is reading aloud to her kids, are you very theatrical as you're very performative as you're reading?
Yes, I am. I have to, I won't attempt to demonstrate. It's not meant to be recorded, that's for sure. But I try to bring my absolute best to it. I mean, I'm a children's book author because I think children's literature is a critical part of a childhood. I think, as you say, I think it's part of how we come to know our children. It's part of how we bridge the distance between childhood and adulthood. And so, yeah, if I'm reading aloud, I want to bring my absolute best to it. And so I do try really hard I have no acting training whatsoever, but I try to do all the voices. I try to make it really exciting. I really try to go all in.
Well, if they're showing up every day, you're doing a good job.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Adventure in the City of Stories and more about you, Emma.
Yes. So you can find me on my website, emmaotheguy.com. It's Otheguy is how you spell my last name. And I write a monthly newsletter, and you can find that on Substack. And that's the main way that I stay in touch with people these days. I'm not on social media very much. So if you are looking to contact me, my website and then also following me through my newsletter is the easiest way to stay in touch.
We've had a really wonderful time speaking to the author of Adventure in the City of Stories. It's a new middle grade novel from our guest, Emma Otheguy. Hey, Emma, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jed. It was great talking with you.
Hey, my friends, I want to tell you about a coffee company I recently discovered that really lines up with the values we talk about right here at Reading with Your Kids. It's called Afrera Coffee Company, and they're doing things the right way. The coffee is sourced directly from certified Rainforest Alliance farms in Central and South America, with a big focus on farms in El Salvador. I love El Salvador. They work directly with local farmers, support sustainable farming practices, and even use recyclable and combustible packaging. Now, all of that would already make me feel good about supporting them, but honestly, the coffee itself, it's fantastic. You can really taste the quality. The beans are grown in rich volcanic soil and carefully roasted, so the flavor really comes through smooth, rich, and super aromatic. Now, whether you're somebody who loves a strong espresso to get moving in the morning, or you prefer a lighter roast while reading a good book, Afrera has something you're going to enjoy. And this is kind of beautiful. 5% of all their sales goes to charities helping conserve and preserve the great outdoors. So if you'd like to try coffee that tastes amazing and supports good people doing good work, head on over to afreracoffee.com. That's AFUERA coffee.com, and use the promo code READ to get an exclusive 15% off your order. And of course, when you use the code, you're also helping support the podcast. Great coffee and helping families grow closer together. I'd call that a pretty magical way to start your day. Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly Joy Maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Joining us right now from Santiago in the beautiful nation of Chile. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new graphic novel. It's called Raise the Bar. Please welcome to the show, Fernanda Frick. Hey, Fernanda, how are you?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm really looking forward to this. I understand Raise the Bar is about a young girl who wants to lift weights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a teenage girl from Chile that wants to become an Olympic weightlifter.
What a great goal. Tell me, am I right to guess that there are folks who are saying that she can't do it because she's a girl?
Actually, in this case, in this story, it's more about like, her parents tell her that it's like a weird sport, not really because she's a girl, but mostly because, like, it's almost impossible to become an Olympic athlete or a professional athlete in Chile or in Latin America. So mostly it's about that, like all the barriers that you have as an athlete to try to reach your dreams and goals when you're from a place where it's very difficult.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about this young woman.
Yeah. So this is a story about Sam Sanchez. She's a high school student and she wants to become like Chile's first Olympic gold medalist in weightlifting. And she gets this dream because when she was little, like years before the story starts, she saw like her idol, like a fictional weightlifter called Eva dos Santos from Brazil, win a gold medal. And so she becomes obsessed with that goal. And at the beginning of the story, she meets Eva and she recruits her to take her to train at a high performance center.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's the beginning of the story. And from there, she meets other kids her age that also practice different sports. And yeah, that's like the start of her journey into trying to get to the Pan American Games.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of kids out there in this who have that dream, whether it's to be an Olympic weightlifter or a football player or swimmer or whatever it is. There are lots of kids. And one of the things here in the States is that there are a lot of parents who are investing money in getting their kids trained at an earlier and earlier age because they think, oh, well, my kid's going to get a scholarship to college and I won't have to pay. And it's a very unrealistic dream for most kids.
Yeah. And actually, there's a American character to make kind of that contrast because I guess over there in the United States, like there's these incentives to become a professional athlete. Like, yeah, you can get like a full ride scholarship. And I'm not sure it's that incentivized over here. So I guess you get that difference of like parents in the US really committing themselves to getting their kids into sports like very young age. So in the book, you can see a little bit of that contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's entirely healthy, the attitude that a lot of parents have here in the States, in that it's you were seeing a lot of kids who have been pushed into different sports and parents invest a lot of money in them. They start to lose interest when they get to be 12, 13, 14 years old. Yeah,
definitely. Because if it's that's also exploring in the book throughout other characters that might be really great at their sports, but there's a lot of pressure from the parents. So yeah, I guess it comes to a point where the kid himself or herself has to think if committing to that sport is something they're choosing. Because it must be really hard to train so hard for something that you are not really choosing.
Yeah. Tell me, I'm imagining we're going to learn a lot about weightlifter and gym culture while we're experiencing this graphic novel. Did you have to do research, or did you do a little iron pumping when you were younger, or even now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, when I started writing this book, I did a little bit of CrossFit. That it's not exactly the same as Olympic weightlifting, but it has the two basic movements, which is the snatch and the clean and jerk. So I got some of that experience lifting weights, but not even close to the numbers that they lift in the book. But yeah, I did a lot of research of like watching competitions. I traveled to the 2019 Pan American Games in Lima, Peru. And I watched a lot of competitions. I filmed videos. I took photos, like to have references of how to draw the characters in the book. I also interviewed like Pan American athletes, weightlifters. Yeah.
What's the most unexpected thing you learned during your research?
Oh, I don't know. I guess it was fun to actually confirm that there are some athletes that start very young. So and they get sent to a high performance center. So one of the people I interviewed was Maria Fernanda Valdez, who is a Pan American champion in weightlifting in Chile. And she wasn't from the capital city. And I think her parents sent her like at 16 to train and live at the high performance center in Santiago. Yeah. So it was like, wow, like the story I want to tell, like it's somehow, it's not a fantasy. Like some kids live that. Yeah.
You know, your story and the conflict between Sam and her parents, I think it's something that lots of kids experience, this whole idea of, I have this dream. And then parents coming from a very loving, very caring place are like, you know what, that's not a very realistic dream and you're not going to make it. And what's your plan B? Can you talk a little bit about how you feel about that conflict that exists with so many families?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I live it myself in some sort of way, but with animation and art, because I started very young. I started making my first animations because my main career has been mostly in animation. And I started like at 13 watching tutorials and learning how to animate. And yeah, my parents weren't against art. Like my mom likes to paint and stuff. My sisters also, one studied fine arts, the other one photography. But it was most about like, I was all day in my room, like I didn't have many friends, like, and I was all day like in the computer.
Right.
So it was more about like the health aspects that become, but the discourse was like, oh, it's animation, like you're working too much. Yeah.
Tell me, one of the things that I've learned, because I have zero ability when it comes to visual arts, other than being able to play with Canva. But I'm fascinated at the creative process that artists have, especially visual artists have. One of the things that I've learned with a lot of creators of graphic novels is that there's always one thing in their graphic novel that they have trouble drawing. And it makes them crazy because they have to draw it like 100, 200 times in a graphic novel. Is there something that kind of made you crazy in drawing this graphic novel?
The weights. I hated drawing the weights. Yeah. And there's so many weights in this book.
Yeah. And this is interesting because one of the other things I heard was bicycles. Cars, and one artist created a book about space peas, little green peas out in space. And so it seems like all the things that make illustrators crazy in their graphic novels are circular things. Am I just noticing this, or is there no connection?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Like things that are very like solid and structured, usually, like it's difficult to draw. Yeah. And actually, I've never considered myself like the best artist in terms of like foundations and structure, perspective. And this project was meant to be first an animated series. Like the first version of this project was an animated series that I sold the idea. I mean, a streamer picked up the concept to try to convert it into an animated series. And in that scenario, I will be the director, so I won't have to draw the weights myself. But so I was like, oh, I'll be okay because I won't have to draw all of this myself. I'll have better artists. And so but when the streamer canceled the project, it was like, okay, if I want to make this a book, I have to do it myself. But I still had some friends and colleagues that helped me and draw some of the backgrounds, draw some of the weights of the book. So yeah, at least I didn't have to do it alone.
Yeah. So help me understand, when you say you have other artists help with the backgrounds, do they create the background first and then you draw on top of their drawing, or are you using computers to kind of put your work on top of their background?
Yeah, no, everything was done in the computer, except the very first stage, which is just like scribbles in a notebook trying to translate what I wrote in the script to what it will look in the page, like how many panels it will have, where will the speech bubbles be. And so I draw the whole graphic novel in sketches, and then a friend like draw the final backgrounds, and then I will draw the final characters. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, it must have been incredibly disappointing for you when the streamer backed out of the project. It happens, and as artists, we know that these things can happen, but it still must be incredibly disappointing.
Yeah. It was because it was like a dream come true when I got the news that it was like I will work with them. So it was I had so many hopes for this, but the process was very difficult. I was inexperienced. The company tried to change things, so we never really had like the same creative direction. So at the end, when they canceled it, a part of me was very disappointed, was very sad, but another part of me was relieved because it was like, oh, okay, this version that it was going to become an animated series was becoming a version of the story that I didn't fully like, didn't fully believe in.
Yeah.
So when I sold it as a book, I was able to actually tell the story I wanted. And also my editor, she even got me to go deeper and like explore deeper themes that I was scared to touch on because I was like, oh, the animated version will never have allowed this. But my editor actually encouraged me. So at the end, it was for the best.
Yeah. Are you able to share with us what some of those deeper issues are?
Yeah. So there's a lot of burnout depicted in the book. Sam, the protagonist, in one moment gets really burned out, and it's not pretty to see. Like, she gets irritable. She gets, well, spoilers, but I guess this is for the parents, not for the kids. Yeah. But she gets an injury. So, but yeah, and also there's a little bit of like mentioning a dictatorship that happened in Chile like a long time ago and how that affected the family. And that kind of reflects also a little bit of the story of my family. And that's the kind of stuff that I think that won't have be able to be to appear in the animated version. Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it was a blessing in disguise that the project fell through. The animation project fell through.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I wonder if that streamer will come back now that Raise the Bar is a graphic novel, and we're assuming it's going to become a New York Times best-selling book. Maybe they'll be coming back to you saying, Fernanda, we'll do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that's a secret hope, but I'm okay with it. Like the fact that the book exists and the story exists, it's enough for me. Yeah.
Tell me, are you thinking of making this a series? Will we see Sam in different stories?
Oh, no, I don't think so, because I mean, at first I wanted it to be a very like long story. Like I was like, oh, it will be like 3 volumes. And the first volume is Sam going to the Pan Americans. And the second volume, she's going to the Olympics. And yeah. But to be honest, like I think the book ends up in a very like closed note that I think that it will make readers feel satisfied.
Yeah. So it's because the story is concluded. It's not because you said, I don't want to draw any more weights.
A little bit of, no. But also this book took 5 years. So it's like, oh no, like if I do Raise the Bar 2, it's going to be too long, I think. Yeah. But I'm happy where this story ends. Yeah.
Well, that's really wonderful. I'm always kind of blown away, you know, when I'm thinking about a graphic novel, you're talking about 1,000 of images that need to be created to tell the story.
Yeah. It's 350 pages, and in each one of those pages, there's little panels. So yeah, I'm not going to do the math, but yeah.
Well, even if there's just 4 panels on a page, and there's probably more, that's you're talking close to 1,500 images.
Yeah.
That's a lot of drawing.
Yeah. And it's also like you first draw everything in sketches, then you do like the clean like ink lines, and then you color. So you are going through every page like multiple times. Yeah.
Tell me what's next for you. Can you give us a preview of what you're working on?
I mean, I don't have exactly my next project lined up, but I don't know if I will keep doing animation projects, but I do want to write a middle grade novel, like not graphic novel, like, which will be very new for me because everything I've done, it's like drawings first, the visuals first, but I really want to try my hand at writing a middle grade novel that of course will have illustrations, but yeah.
Tell me the one quick last question. We had a series a couple of years ago, had a wonderful intern from Ecuador, and she interviewed publishers and authors from throughout Latin America. And one of the things we learned in that series is that books that are created for a Latin American audience first are different in tone and than books that are created for an audience in the United States. Is that something that you had to consider in creating Raise the Bar?
Yeah, I mean, it was created for the US first. So, and I think that having published books in Chile and now in the US, the difference is that the books I published in Chile had very little oversight from the editor. It was like not so concerned with the target audience. So, but with Raise the Bar, I had my editor telling me like, oh, no, we can't. For example, there was a scene I wrote initially about a prom dance. And she was like, no, but that's more for like a YA audience. And it was like, okay, so no prom, which is okay. Now I don't even remember what the scene was about.
Okay.
But it's the kind of things that if the book was written with all those details and then wanted to publish in the US, then maybe librarians will know where to put it. It won't be clear if it's middle grade or YA. So I guess that kind of classification really informs the writing process sometimes. Yeah.
Awesome. Tell us where we can go to find out more about Raise the Bar and find out more about you, please.
Yeah, you can just check my Instagram, Fernanda Freak. And also you can watch my animation works if you want in fernandafreak.com.
Great. We've had a wonderful time speaking to the author and illustrator of Raise the Bar. It's a brand new middle grade graphic novel from our guest, Fernanda Frick. Hey, Fernanda, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it was very fun.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. You'll join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Emma Otheguy. Please be sure to check out Adventures in the City of Stories. I also want to thank Fernanda Frick. Please be sure to check out Raise the Bar. I want to thank my team, Daylene Rose, Advina Lopez, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the love and support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a more caring, more empathetic place. And thank you so much for giving your kid the love and attention they need. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.